Okay, so now we're starting to make the landing gear. And you got to bend the oleo strut innards with a piece of wire, and they give you the right pattern. This just takes a lot of tweaking and a little while to do, so I'm going to kind of go through it. I use a little Sharpie. I just put the wire up against where the bends are supposed to be, and I put a little mark. I suppose you could just leave it long and trim it too, which is probably the easier way to do it. And take a nice pair of pliers. These, oh, look at that. My cat absolutely loves it when I start playing with wire. And you start taking the wire at the places where it's supposed to bend. In this case, a nice 90-degree bend. You grab it and you just bend it over. And what this process is just slow, and then you have to just keep checking it to your pattern. So put it down there, and now I got to start to make a curve. So I take the marker, put a little dark mark where that curve starts, and then these pliers have a little rounded tip on them, so I can sort of bend the wire around that part of the jaw, and it makes a pretty good curve. And I just keep playing with it, keep tweaking it, keep tweaking it, keep tweaking it, and keep checking it back and forth. And you just do little incremental bends. And there's probably a better way to do this, but this is the way I've always, bent prop hooks for flying, for free flight models, and all the rest. So again, if somebody knows a better way, you should let everybody know. But you just keep doing this, and I very carefully just do a little incremental bits. You can see I'm barely moving the wire, but as I do that, I get closer and closer, and I finally get to a spot where now I can just go another vertical bend, and that'll give me the broad part where the main oleo strut's going to go up into the wing. Do the same thing, grab it so it's right on the edge. And it just takes practice to know, when you put your little mark, what side of the mark you need to be on. You got to sort of take into account by eye the actual bend too. It's like the kerf of a saw blade. You got to make sure that it take that into account. Now I go ahead and cut off the length, and again you could just leave this because this is going to be rolled inside the oleo strut paper, and then you can cut it off. But in fact, that might be a better idea, but I didn't do that. Cut it off, and there you are. And you make sure it's okay, and look at that, it's pretty dang close. So it's good. Now these are parts, the paper parts. So that's the part that's going to go around and sort of supposed to be down by the wheel itself. And it has to be bent and folded, and you can see it's folded into this shape. I'm starting to glue those pieces together. It's very obvious where to bend it and where to cut it. And you can see that round opening up there. Oh, there's the cat again. For crying out loud. Man, he's so cute, though. He's my pal when I'm making models. Anyway, hold this together and let it dry. Sometimes it helps to have some tweezers. And you have to bend it, bend the paper the right way and hold things together. Use your fingers as little bitty clamps. And you just tweak it together, and there it goes. Now this is the main oleo strut, and that little round red curl means curl this thing around. And you start, or at least I start, by taking some kind of appropriate round object and rolling it on my little old mouse pad. And you do that a few times, and then I roll it in itself. It doesn't have to be super tight at first. I just make kind of one roll and get it to go, and then I unroll it, and then I roll it again a little bit tighter each time with my thumbs and my forefinger there. And I just keep doing that multiple times, and I probably did it maybe 8 times or something, and pretty soon you can see it's getting thinner and thinner, and pretty soon the diameter is tiny enough that it'll fit in the hole that goes up into the wing, into the wheel well. You just keep doing that, and you see those flaps go all the way around. That's pretty skinny. Those are going to go all the way around and glue very carefully around the edge and give you some, give you the gradations of where some of the oleo strut pieces are. So it's well designed, it's well thought out. But anyway, roll it between your fingers like that, and then you can start thinking about gluing. Now, in this case, I'm going to check and make sure, is that a small enough diameter? And I stick it in there and I check it. Yeah, it's going to be really close. It's going to need a little trimming, but that's going to be it. So I take some super glue now, put it along the piano wire strut. It has to be strong because this thing does weigh a lot, by the way, the airplane. And you put it in and let it dry, and dries pretty quick in that little piece of paper. And then once it's dry, you put some of the white tacky glue on the paper parts, and then you roll it back together. Be careful not to put too much on, because I've done that before, and it just gets squishy, and the paper will slide, and it'll be out of shape, out of round. But if you do it just right, you can roll your paper around like that. You get your tight little cylinder, and of course, the piece of metal is captured in there. Now that you got that together, I just put a little glue on each of the little strip pieces, or the strips, and I slowly wind them around. And you just want to make sure they're straight. The other strut that I already put in, I didn't do a very good job. This one actually looks a little straighter. So when I roll these around, they match up nice, and you end up with these nice straps that go around the length, and it gives it some structure, and it makes it look like a real oleo strip.
What?
Oh, he speaks. I had to leave that in there because he's so cute. Anyway, now put on this little piece, which the bottom part, which is where the wheel is going to end up going, just matches up. Put some glue on there, in that case some super glue, and a little of the white glue in the round opening there, and you just slide this in place. Now, not sure if this is actually right the geometry is quite right, because that piece to me should not be up against that darker gray piece, colored piece on the oleo strut, because that's the part that's supposed to move up and down. So this is all going to be painted, but I'm not sure if it's exactly right, but there you go. I had to sand the tip off a little bit with my emery board, and then I go ahead and test it. It has a nice tight fit, and you can see it's going to be straight. Put a little super glue on there. Put this baby in, and then you just kind of quickly make sure it is straight up and down, back and forth, in and out. Make sure it looks good. Make sure it's going to be, look right. Look at pictures of the real airplane. Make sure there's no canting or anything like that. And there you go. The oleo strut is in. And it will look pretty good once it's done. I mean, once you put everything on there and the wheels on there. Now, it's a single strut. The actual piece in the real airplane is much more detailed than this, but this is a start. We're going to maybe gussy it up a little. That piece goes in and attaches and just kind of goes. There's no place to locate it, but I just put it down there, and it looks good. Especially from a couple feet away, it looks like the wheel struts are busy. And now the wheels, I didn't show how I made them, but I made them like I always do with pieces of balsa sandwiched, and then put them into a Dremel tool and just sanded them. And now I'm taking the little pieces of paper that are going to be the hubs, and to make sure it fits on, I put a piece of wire through one end, and then lace the piece of paper on the wire, because then I know it's in the center, or really at least closer than doing it by eye. Anyway, pull out the wire. Squish that down a little bit, glue it, and you're ready to go. Then I'm putting on the other side. The other side has a little bit more, there's texture to it, or when I sanded it, and it'll be bulgy and bumpy unless you cut a slit in it, and that's what I did. And if you can't even see it once you're done, I just cut a little slit with the X-Acto blade, boom, like that, and then you just push down, and then you got a nice solid cover, and it looks fine. And then I'm just sticking this in here so to see what it looks like. And man, it kind of looks cool when they're all on there. It's got a good seat, good sitting stance. I'm going to probably sand the flat part of the wheels on the bottom to give them some flatness, and that'll adjust some of the height and some of the how it's perched. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. It does look nice. And there's the one we just did. Now, earlier I did the nose, and I didn't show you. I'm just going to show you the pieces. So that's again a balsa wheel, and that is a piece of wood in this case. A little piece of dowel that I wrapped the piece of paper around, and then it's got a couple, again, some struts that aren't that accurate, and there's a scissors, and then it's got the yoke that goes over the wheel. And in the end of that piece of wood in there, I put a piece of wire, and you can see this just pulls right out, pop, and you can see a hole in the balsa, and you can see a corresponding piece of wire sticking out. And you just sandwich that right down in there and stick it in there when it's time, when it's glued, and it looks great when it's done. So that's the nose wheel.